And away we go. This is Vandal Drummond, joined as always by Alfredo Esparza in the not-so-sunny shores of Southern California. How you doing today, Fredo?
Doing good. It's been kind of cold this week.
It certainly has. We're getting a little encore of the stormy weather.
You know, we always say it's cold here, and it's not even that cold when you think about it. Like
that's when I can just totally tell I am a true Southern California native. Is when I bitch and moan about the weather being cold.
Yeah, when it's 60 degrees outside and it's like, that's not cold.
Yeah, I'll be the first to say I'm not the toughest cat on the block. I'm definitely a city boy. I just think of the people in the Northeast and in Canada who are just, toughing it out in the winter. And when I think, one of the things I enjoy doing is running, when I think of the people who are avid runners in all these other regions, I mean, not even the really cold ones like the Northeast, but people like in the Pacific Northwest who, if they, want to keep their running game going, they got to be doing it in, like, the worst conditions.
Yeah.
So, hats off to you guys. I'll be the first to admit that I'm a domestic house cat, and I intend to stay that way.
Worst case here is, probably 50 degrees, in the, evening. While we're all sleeping.
It's a rarity.
Early in the morning or something when everybody's really not doing anything.
The only time I ever lived in a chilly climate was when I was 18 years old. It was when I lived up in Eugene, Oregon. And that one year I was there, it snowed for the first time in 13 years in the city of Eugene. And it was such a luxury to me because what I got was novelty snow. It snowed for one night.
Yeah.
We got to go out into the front yard and build a snowman. Next day we had to, ice off our cars, but not enough where we even had to shovel the driveway. And then the snow went away. I didn't have to dig myself out of snow day after day. My brother-in-law, Tony, his girlfriend, Lorraine, she's this little thing who probably weighs 100 pounds soaking wet, and she lives, up in the Big Bear area in the mountains. And she'll spend several hours shoveling herself out of the snow, just to move her car.
Whereas us, we would stay indoors. Maybe I'll take a day off.
We'd go through our DVD collection, get caught up. Maybe that's the way I should get caught up on all my wrestling viewing, is I should just go someplace where the weather's really bad, so I'll be, just stuck indoors. And, well, what else do you do?
I always like when people tell me, can you let me know when you're sending DVDs? Because I'm trying not to go out every single time. I'm trying to time this, so I don't have to go out that often. Well, okay.
Oh, how funny! That's fascinating.
So you want to talk about wrestling, or we should skip wrestling entirely and talk about other stuff? Just kidding.
Yeah, let's talk about everything else under the sun. There's so many fascinating things going on. Actually, it's unusual. There's a lot of fascinating things going on wrestling-wise.
Yeah, well, in Lucha there was there was one story that was going to be big, but it got squashed right away. Maximo.
Yes, wasn't he toying with the idea of hopping over to AAA?
He was supposedly it's his Facebook page, but now nobody really knows because, it could be a 13-year-old girl, or that's what Mark Cole pointed out, how 13-year-old girls change their mind so often. That's kind of what wrestlers are like too. So he said, I think it was during the evening that he had just gotten a call from somebody from another prominent wrestling promotion that was offering him a bigger deal, a really nice, good deal or whatever he was going to get. Mm-hmm. So everybody assumed it was AAA. There's really, Maximo, you don't really think there's a huge line, waiting for him. So
yeah, wasn't Florida Championship Wrestling?
Florida Champion. I think that's right. Second in line, I think. So,
they mistook him for Mistico.
Yeah. So then, early in the morning, the following day, he decides to announce that it's official. He's going to AAA. So everybody's like, oh, say it, please. His Facebook page is filled with people saying, oh, don't go, and a couple of people saying, oh, well, it's for the best or whatever. And then everybody's trying to figure out if it's really him on Facebook. So Boxy Lucha, some fan posted on the forum, so it becomes this big old story with everybody else. And then, like, I guess a couple of hours later, everybody noticed that he was already wavering on it.
Mm-hmm.
So then all of a sudden we get a report, Chris Z gets a report that he showed up in Arena Lopez Mateos, working the main event where it was with CMLL wrestlers.
Yes.
So then that pretty much sealed the deal where we kind of figured he was going to stick around with CMLL.
Pretty much squashed the rumors.
Yeah, so then like a couple of minutes later on his Facebook page, he writes, "I've changed my mind, I'm staying with CMLL." So it's like, oh, okay, waste of time right here. So for a full day, that's pretty much what everybody was talking about.
Fascinating. And so we still don't know if it was really him.
Well, what made it even worse was Dorian Roldan was on Twitter, and he said, the Maximo rumor, we haven't really heard anything about this. It's just a rumor. We haven't heard anything about it. But he didn't deny it. He didn't say, he's not coming here. He just made it seem like, okay, he might show up, but it's just a rumor. So it kind of just fell apart right away.
Just kind of died a quick death.
Yeah. And then the other story is Magnus debuting for CMLL, I think, last Friday. And basically who this guy is Mistico's cousin.
And this is a guy that Steve Sims was on Brian Alvarez's show yesterday and was talking about they're toying with the idea of him pretty much filling Mistico's role when Mistico leaves.
Yeah. If you noticed, like a couple of weeks ago, they did a little interview with all the new young talent that's coming into CMLL. So they had him on, and he had red. His mask was it looked kind of the same as Mistico, but it was white and with the red lining. And now, like when he debuted, it was all white, just like Mistico. So and the look, his body, the gear, everything looked like Mistico.
So step by step.
Yeah, and
at least it looks like they're at least going to toy with the idea of just.
Yeah, they're pretty much. I think they're going to give it a shot with him for a while. But the thing is, like, even if he doesn't get pushed as Mistico, if you watch enough CMLL, you'll notice like almost everybody is booked to be kind of like Mistico. Every technical.
True.
So it's like it doesn't really matter if he fails or succeeds, because they always just have an extra guy coming in.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the odds are that things won't work out with WWE. You never know. I mean, we all thought that with Dos Caras Jr. when he went in. Let's see what happened.
Yeah.
But what would be interesting is if he's gone for any length of time from CMLL, it'll be really interesting to see if it affects CMLL very much.
Well, the other thing, like, I know when Steve was saying that they think he's going to fail, so they figure he's going to come back at some point. If he unmasked and makes it to WWE, I can't really see it. I don't really see the point of them really making a big deal over him. Because if he's unmasked, what's the point of bringing him back?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
It kills pretty much that one gimmick match that they could have made a ton of money off of.
Kills the mystique, and I wonder if I wonder if WWE actually has a plan, or they're just kind of saying, oh, we've got a new Latin superstar coming in, let's see what happens. I wonder if they even have any solid plan of what they want to do with him.
Well, that.
From what I understand, Dos Caras Jr. was about to take a hike from Florida Championship Wrestling after being there a year and just thinking it wasn't going anywhere, and they decided, okay, let's give him the push now.
For Mistico, I mean, I think it's better for him to fail. If he's going to fail, it's better for him to fail in Florida. So that way nobody's really going to know about it. Nobody really follows Florida Championship Wrestling like they do WWE.
Oh, exactly. I mean,
even TNA. Like if he did in TNA, nobody really. I mean, in Mexico, I don't think it's as popular as it is as WWE is down there. So.
Yeah, and Florida is like. I mean, I'm hardly aware of what goes on in Florida.
I mean, you see these guys pop up, and you don't even know who they are. I mean, because we don't really follow it.
Yes. Though I did see the clip that is on your page of Eddie Guerrero's daughter's debut.
Yeah, did you think he's good, or?
It's hard to tell. I mean, she's green.
You're going to say she's a girl.
Obviously.
She can't wrestle.
I mean, it's really hard to tell, and all 4 girls in that ring were green.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I would say is it seems like, just when she goes to lock up, she seems to have a bit more of a natural base as a wrestler as opposed to a diva.
Did Eddie have a son or anything? No.
I don't know. I don't think he did. I think he had 2 daughters with Vicky, and he had a daughter with another woman when they were separated.
Oh, okay.
I'm not even aware of how old they are. But
I think Shaul is like 20 or something.
Yeah.
18 or something.
Yeah, but Shaul's
probably about 9 now.
Oh, it's the Bixie Demon run-in. Greetings, yeah. Bixie.
Greetings and salutations.
Yes, how is everything?
Good. And I wanted to thank you, since I haven't talked to you yet, for the last couple care packages, for lack of a better term, that you sent.
Oh, I hope you enjoyed them. I sent our friend the Bixie Demon. I was going through mountains and mountains of old archives here in the Drummond household, and came across tons of old lucha flyers and newspaper articles and stuff I just didn't have any room for, and sent them back east in the good hands of the Bixie Demon.
I really want to thank you again, and especially those hand-drawn lucha flyers are incredible.
I love those.
I mean, those things, and you sent me a ton of those, and those. I mean, I've seen a couple of those over the years, just in reprints. Like I remember maybe in like a Wrestling Then and Now or something. But those are, I mean, the people who did those were very talented artists.
Yeah, I love those, and that was part of the charm of going to Tijuana. Was not only would you see those posters hand drawn everywhere, plastered everywhere, but they would have vans where there was artwork done on the van advertising the show, where it appeared they'd just spray paint the van, and it would drive around Tijuana just hawking the show.
And these weren't like those flyers that you have up on your page, the ones where that have just the typing and everything.
No, these were actually the advertised ones. I want to put some more of those type results from the 30s.
Yeah. No, not the type results, the type flyers, the ones that just have like Jimmy Cyclone versus.
Oh, well, you sent me some of those. Send me some of those too.
Yeah, you sent me some of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those.
Oh yeah, I was blown away that I even had those. Yeah, those were. Those were like the ultimate grassroots programs. I crack up because I remember they would actually try to sell those programs at the show for 50 cents and nobody would buy them.
There's a lot of cool stuff in there, though. Actually, I mean, one of my favorite things, just because it's something you'd never see anywhere, was the Xerox of a Dave Meltzer article from the National.
That's right. I was shocked that I still had that. I mean, that was such a blast from the past. I remember getting the National every week when it came out just to get Meltzer's stories. And for like a really brief time, that newspaper actually really made a splash. It was in, all the newspaper vending machines. One of those things that came and went. It's too bad it didn't stay around a little longer.
Definitely an interesting idea to do, an all sports daily. And, you had, Frank DeFord running it and stuff. So they had good people behind it, and they had good money behind it, too.
Yes, they did. And Frank DeFord was the one who got Meltzer in there. From what I recall, there were several people who didn't want any pro wrestling covered, and DeFord was the guy who came on board and not only insisted it be covered, but he insisted that Dave would be the one to write the stories.
One thing, and I don't remember where I read the story, was that Dave told it once in an interview that it was something like that. Originally, it was supposed to be pretty much just a humor wrestling column, that it wasn't going to be straight news or long-form profiles or whatever like that, but pretty much like the first or second week that, because it was like Tuesdays or Thursdays or something, he had his column, was when Sting blew out his knee, and he said, this is the biggest story, I can't do, something funny about this, so I guess it kept being called the Grunt and Grin, but it went to being just a regular, just kind of a long-form wrestling feature thing.
Interesting. I mean, it's interesting you say that because one of the things about Frank DeFord is he wrote a book on the roller derby, I want to say in the early 1970s, but I guess he didn't plan originally to write an entire book on it, but Sports Illustrated sent him out to travel with the roller derby. I believe it was like the circuit back east. I'm not positive. But what they wanted him to write like a tongue-in-cheek article, kind of like you're saying, the grunts and grins, and wanted him to kind of, do like a slap-in-the-face article, just how silly it was. But apparently after hanging with them long enough, he steadfastly refused to do so because he saw how, they were just working their butts off and, had a lot of pride in their work. And he wrote a very admirable article, just, singing their praises. And Sports Illustrated not only printed it, but he did a book on it. I can't remember if the book was just the newspaper article or magazine article done like a photo book. I never actually saw a copy, and I think it's a really rare find.
What is it called? It's something of the banked track or something, right?
I bet you if you Googled it, it would come right up.
Just look up Frank DeFord banked track.
Yes.
I really just love, always like kind of just the random type assortments of wrestling stuff because, like, cause just getting it. Like I remember once I bought Tom Burke was selling grab bags on eBay.
I used to love I actually got his old school grab bags in the late 1970s.
Yeah. And most of it was really cool stuff, and it was definitely worth the money, because there was a Japanese magazine or two in there, some regular American magazines, but a little of it was a little annoying because he printed out some articles he found online, and then
I never
part of it.
See, I never got his stuff post internet age.
Yeah, got it on eBay. It was some cool stuff. I mean, like something from like what's his name? Boyd Pierce's promotion business, like a little like key holder type thing, like a little like rubber key holder coin purse thing that was really weird. Just all sorts of stuff like that. And then then with the stuff you sent me, there was some weird stuff like there was that Ernie Ladd postcard and the photos of, I think.
Is that the one of Ernie Ladd giving a big splash to somebody?
Yeah.
Yes, that was. I think that was actually featured like in a museum somewhere.
Wow.
Because Elena came across that postcard when she was in an art museum.
Huh.
Tom Burke's Global Wrestling was the very first newsletter I ever took, and that was like in the 1977. And I started ordering his grab bags within a few months, and man, I ordered them as often as I could because the stuff he had put in there. I had a ton of posters from England. Even had a really cool poster from France, and I got some
British and I think I got some British and French stuff from him in this too. And when I got it, whenever this was like early to mid last decade, I mean, I even have a official souvenir program. It's on like this cardboard from the San Bernardino Arena from 1957.
Yes, I know which one you're talking about. It's a little blue.
Well, this one's not blue, but it's what, you think he had a bunch of the same ones? It's with Guy Brunetti and Joe Tangero against Gene Dubuque and brother Frank Jarry.
Oh, that's a different one than what I have.
Okay.
Tom Burke, it's worth going out of your way if you could get to his house and see his museum. It's just amazing. I went there in 1980. That was the first time I actually met him. And it would have taken me a week just to go through all the stuff to get a satisfying taste of all the great wrestling paraphernalia he had. I think we mentioned this on the show before. One of the most interesting things he had was the WWF Championship belt that Pedro Morales had.
And pawned.
Yeah, and pawned. Yes, he got it at a pawn shop. And he also has just a fascinating video collection, some of which I've never seen anywhere else. I sent you, it's way too short, but those little clips of Chris Colt and Ron Dupree.
Oh, right, from Tony Santos' promotion, right?
Yes, back when Chris Colt wrestled as, what was the name? Maurice Chevet or something like that.
Chevier or Chalvier or something.
Yes. And one tape that I have looked for years, I am such a terrible rat packer, and I'm going to ask him about again, is he actually had a match from the late 60s from French TV, a tag team match, that was really good work, too. And the video quality was really bad, but I don't know where else you would find it. And the work in the ring was really good, and just he's amassed an amazing collection of stuff since he's been involved.
Yeah, and one thing I really liked that you sent me were the Japanese phone cards.
Oh, those were cool. I actually have a couple of those somewhere.
Yeah, you sent me these. There was yes, obviously. There was a New Japan one, and then I would think had like either Fujinami or Choshu, or maybe both, an All Japan Women one, and I wasn't quite sure who it was.
And I actually used it when I was in Japan.
Yeah, it was interesting looking at them. That, from what I could tell, it looked like you actually put them into payphones. That it wasn't like an American phone card.
Right. It was weird. When I was in Japan, it was 1990, and in some ways, they were so progressive in things like phone cards. But on the other hand, some of their phones looked like so antique. And the whole 2 weeks that I was there, I was only able to get through Elena twice. It was so hard to get through internationally. Where now, you just send an instant message.
Yeah, I don't know if it works overseas, and I know their service isn't supposed to, actually, it might not work overseas, but just think how things have changed in perspective, how little you can add, international phone service for on some plans, like Metro.
Oh, it's amazing.
Like $10 over their top plan or something. I mean, they're not supposed to be that good, but even if you do it online or whatever, it's just.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, just.
Well, how long distance in general?
I'm sorry?
Long distance in general.
It's amazing. When I used to get in so much trouble when I was like 16, 17, because I would call fellow wrestling fans like Tom Burke or Ron Vallum, and I could tell when I was in trouble when my parents opened the phone bill because, oh, Lord. I'm embarrassed to say this now, but this was 1978, and we're getting phone bills for like $125. Oh man, my folks are not pleased with me. Very displeased. But you could make all those same phone calls today, and it wouldn't even break $75.
Yeah,
well, if you have an internet connection and you have a Google account, you can do it for free.
Yeah.
Yes.
I did the exact same thing, Kurt. You just brought back this memory that I've forgotten about forever when you brought up this story. Because when Southern California Wrestling moved from the Olympic to the LA Sports Arena, one of the things that the LaBelle promotion set up was having actual people answer the phone. It like when you got the little flyers when you went to the wrestling matches, it would say, call this number and ask a question or just something unusual like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Half the time the people didn't know the answer.
Yeah, I think I personally shut that idea down myself because I was calling like every 10 minutes. I would call. I remember they would call. They would answer the phone. LA Sports Arena, Mike LaBelle Wrestling, and by the 10th call in an hour, they were like, about time wrestling, yes, Ryan. And I'd ask questions. When is Bob Backlund gonna be coming? Or
and they're like, who?
Is Superstar Graham going to come out of retirement? Is Andre the Giant, 7'5", or is that a lie?
Every year they would say on TV as the night after the Battle Royal, because after 1975 the shows were no longer on live TV; they were all taped. But so they'd have a tape thing the day after the show saying, call to make your reservations at the Olympic right now and ask them who won the Battle Royal. They will tell you. And so I would call, and they would say, for the love of God, we don't know who won the Battle Royal. Do you want to order tickets or not?
And that wasn't a very acceptable answer to you, was it?
Oh, totally. You're livid. You're just thinking like, you're calling the source. You're calling the oracle. You're calling the key to all mankind. Who won the Battle Royal?
Yeah, you're part of the cool club because you can go and call and find out who and then you're so disappointed when they have no idea what you're talking about.
Exactly. The funniest was 1982 when the last show was sometime in December, and they had already taped like a good 4 weeks of TV. Well, after they had already taped the TV, Michael Bell decided to fold it up, and he sold to Vince McMahon Jr., or Kennedy McMahon, whatever you want to call him. And
I'm not Junior, goddammit.
The promotion was sold, but they were still running ads saying, yes, the Battle Royal is coming in January. Call the Olympic right now, or, and ask them when the Battle Royal is. And the thing is, we had, my friend Lloyd and I had found out that the promotion was sold, even though nobody's supposed to know it yet. And so we just kept calling the Olympic over and over again. Just saying, tell us about the Battle Royal. And they're saying, there is no Battle Royal. Stop calling.
Now, why were they still running the ads, though? Did LaBelle try to sell tickets to a show that wasn't going to happen at all? Or?
If he could get away with it, he would have.
Actually, I can answer that.
Dan Farron joining Dixie Demon, Ryan Doyle, and the rest of us.
The one thing about calling in now, because they say you are unmuted and you go on there, do you know how hard it is to find a spot to jump in?
Yes.
And the fun part always is I always love calling in and seeing what subject, what strange subject we're talking about. And the first thing I thought of was the cell phone hour or something. I'm hearing about all different kind of cell plans and whatever.
One day we have to have a special Royal Rumble edition of Slam and Stan where every 2 minutes another caller comes.
That's a great idea.
There you go.
But I think I can answer that question because there was a Battle Royal in January, except it was a WWF Battle Royal.
I remember
but they did not know that at the time.
Oh, you don't think they did?
No, they didn't. They definitely didn't. In fact, it didn't.
Are you saying a wrestling promoter lied to the fans?
No, never lied. Never lied. Just
gilded the lily
natively stretched the truth.
They gilded the lily.
Do you know, I remember that about, you talk about calling in for results. I remember one time seeing, this was back, I think it was John Tolis and Pampero Firpo were feuding over the America's belt, and Jeff Walton was on there, and he goes, fans, if you want to find out who won the match last night, call our friendly, operators at Richmond 9, 5171. Call them now. So I picked the phone, called, and they said, the Olympic Auditorium. And I said, who won the match last night? And the lady went, Tolis. Click.
Oh, Lord.
Safe to say this little group of people here pretty much shut down phone calls going to the Olympic and the sports arena.
I wonder if each of our names is etched, like carved into the phone booth at the Olympic Auditorium, like beware, Ryan Doyle, Vandal Drum, and Dan Farron. Just hang up.
Oh my gosh, those are the.
What you do? I wanted to really call back and say, what was the time of the fall?
What was the?
But it sounds like I got more out of them than you guys did, though. At least they knew one of the wrestlers and who won.
Well, you have a much more You sound a lot more educated than I do. I was. I just sounded like this, hyperactive kid. Like, oh God, who won it?
I just got a lot of hemming and hawing and a lot of exasperation on the other end is what I got. A lot of people just frustrated, just annoyed by this kid.
But see, you guys had it easy though, because you just had to report to your fathers, right?
Oh dear.
I had to report to my wife. Who are you calling? Nothing. Don't worry about it.
When I lived up in Oregon, there were several different friends that I talked with, and back then it was the typical thing. Since there was no internet, there were no videos, you would talk for an hour or two on the phone. I had one friend, and this is no creative shaping of the truth here. I have one friend who his wife finally ripped the phone out of the wall and punched him in the face with the phone. I'm not talking a cell phone. I'm talking a full-body phone.
Wow.
Yeah.
A big old heavy rented Ma Bell rotary phone.
The real thing. And he said, yes, it hurt.
And when when she hit him with it, did she say, "This it's for you," and then hit him with it?
And he heard ring, ring for years afterwards. He's probably still having flashbacks.
Well, it's funny. You were talking about that. I was having a conversation with someone today, and we were, always when fans have been, around for a long time, they always get into that discussion about, well, do you think the territories will ever come back?
No.
And and my answer quickly that way is no, but not always for the same reasons everybody else says. The territories would never come back because the fans are different.
Totally.
The fans who in the old days bought it or at least a suspended disbelief and whatever and it don't exist anymore. So
No,
I don't
think sequestered in their trailers and
Yeah, but I don't think also that that if you look at hardcore fans or smart fans or whatever, their reaction to territories I don't think would be the same as it was back in those days.
No, I firmly believe the territories you can't bring back, but I do think you could sell something akin to that product back then and still have some pretty rabid fans. I mean, because you had the fans who definitely believed, but you had a lot of fans who believed because they wanted to believe. And I get embarrassed whenever I tell this story, but two of the goofiest fans in San Bernardino, would get red in the face over the stuff the heels did.
Mm-hmm.
But deep inside they knew. I mean, I remember sitting there all, I was taught to kayfabe, and you wanted to be one of the boys, so you always kayfabe, and these fans don't know anything. And Tom Jones was going to wrestle Professor Ito in a Loser Leave Town, and the goofy fans said, I guess we're not going to see Professor Ito for a long, long time, huh? And my friend and I were just cocky there, just going, oh, yeah? Like, what makes you think he's going to lose? And he just stares at me and says, well, let's see. Next week here, he's wrestling Tom Jones in a Loser Leave Town match. In Bakersfield, he's wrestling Chavo in a Loser Leave Town match. In Oxnard, he's wrestling Mondo in a Loser Leave Town match. Do the math, Einstein.
Kurt, whenever you do your impression of those fans, you always sound like Barney Fife. I don't know why.
Well, they made me look like Barney Fife that night. I was totally duped by a tard, Well,
I mean, let me ask you a question, though, with that. When you say territories, now, let's define a territory. Are you talking about the old days when you had several cities under a blanket of one promotion and had television, or are you talking about a small group that maybe does or doesn't have television, like an independent group that goes around to 4 or 5 different places?
Independent group that goes around to 4 or 5 different places. I don't think you can ever bring the territories back like you did.
Yeah, not like that. I mean, there's a variation, but you can't. It would never be the same as it was at that time.
No, that's gone. I do think if you came out with like a good TV product, you could garner some passionate interest, but nothing like it was.
Yeah.
I think you could still sell something and have fans get passionately into it as they would a good movie, but to bring back the territorial days, that's been there. It's gone. It's fun to think it could happen, but
well, I think also it's just not even just in wrestling and anything. People always will say, "Well, I wish this would come back." But the thing is that the reason that stuff doesn't come back is because time marches on, and to go back, it would be a different time altogether, and it's all the other things that you would have to, even if you were to go back and do a territory. I mean, it's hard to believe for a lot of people now, but back then there was no internet, there was no newsletters really. I mean, with the exception of the handful, and as we all have talked about before, it may be 3-4 months before you found out there was a new world champion in many cases.
I remember Moondog Moretti phoning me because he heard David Von Erich died, and this was like 3 months after the fact. And but that wasn't uncommon.
No, wait. That sounds a little weird though, because they had national TV though.
Yeah.
But the news still didn't spread. I mean,
I saw that on the news.
Where was he working, in Vancouver at that point, or?
Yeah, he was in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Oh, so in Vancouver they were probably a little more cut off.
Cable still wasn't quite everywhere. It was still a luxury in some
whatever.
places.
Yeah.
And why would he call you about wrestling news? No.
Kurt was like, who's David Von Erich?
Well, you know what? Okay, here's another one. When I told Mickey Doyle, David Von Erich died, and he did say, what was that, one of Fritz's kids or something? And that's because at that time, this was like early 1984, World Class wasn't airing here.
But what you're saying is that no wrestlers at that time could afford cable, is what you're really trying to say.
Well,
they weren't on cable yet.
A lot of wrestlers don't watch wrestling.
Oh,
yep.
That's true.
A lot of wrestlers don't watch wrestling. I mean,
that's true.
Once they get into the business, they kind of don't watch it. So
yeah, it becomes a job for a lot of them.
Which is always kind of strange to me, because I always felt like if you joined something, wouldn't you want to keep up on what's going on in your? It'd be like somebody who gets in the movie business and decides they're not going to read the movie trade papers anymore.
Yeah.
It's true, though, but it wasn't uncommmen. There were a lot of people who just
there's a lot of guys that still do that even.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that do that. So
it depends on the guy. Like, if you, like, in Gary Hart's book at the end, he's talking about, are you kidding me? Of course I still watch Raw and SmackDown every week.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that do it, because I remember, like, Superboy was one of the guys who always told us we had to watch everything. And it was like, yeah, we're not going to watch it.
Yeah.
Remember that? We were like, yeah, we're not going to watch SmackDown. Well, we're not going to watch SmackDown or TNA, so.
Yes.
By the way, when was the last time you actually watched TNA, Kurt?
Oh, it's been at least a year. I would occasionally
you're all right, right?
Kurt,
I would occasionally turn it on in hopes that I'd get to see ODB all sassy.
You notice how Ryan said, when was the last time you saw TNA?
Oh, specifically me, yeah. I actually wear it as a badge of honor. What I do love.
Hey guys, at least he realized it was actually a wrestling group, not a TNA movie or something.
Yeah,
that's what. There you go. Well, do you know ODB came back, Kurt? That's what I just heard the other day.
So you know what? I'll be watching little bits and pieces of it again. I'll be DVRing
some of it.
Yeah,
sure, you won't be watching it. Come on.
It's ODB, damn it.
That's like when you were saying about AAA. I'll start watching AAA now that Conan said it's good. And
yeah, and then I watched it. It wasn't very good, so.
It got better like afterwards, but it was pretty bad.
I love DVR because I can fast forward to Gato Everready. I can fast forward to Pimpinela, and
skip the rest.
If I'm in the mood, I can watch the rest of it.
I gave somebody a copy of the last show that we did, and I said, how did you like it? And they go, that's really good. He says, my favorite part was when Kurt was trying to fake that he had seen something, and everybody called him on it. And I said, that's every show. What are you talking about? Kurt's like,
what are you talking about? I always admit I never saw anything. I wear it as a badge of honor that I watch very little.
Have you seen the Park versus Macias match from a couple months ago?
Absolutely not.
Oh, that
was really good, Kurt.
It is really good, actually. Even I've seen that.
Yeah, that's cool. That was better than Parka versus Park, which
I didn't see either.
So we had something to compare it to. So that's
Did Gato Everready do a run-in?
I'm surprised Kurt watched when I post stuff on his Facebook page. I'm always surprised when he says he watches it.
I take your word for it, Fredo. I watched the Tosh.o segment, which was brilliant.
I wrote, Kurt, watch this.
And I did, and it was so brilliant. It was the best thing on Tosh.o in ages, and that's saying a lot.
You know, it's like when Steve Sims used to do the show, and he would tell us, we have homework. You never watched any single. Does he still send you videos?
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
And damn it, Steve Sims, we don't know why you're not on the show these days.
I wonder why he stopped sending you links, too.
Well, I emailed him, I was emailing with him a week or two back, because I was asking about something that was in one of the Lucha Libre weeklies, and, sent me a reply, and then when I sent him a reply back a couple days later, he explains to me that he has to be under a cone of silence for some work-related reason for a couple weeks.
He's been working long hours lately.
His office was moving or something, and that's what was going on, supposedly.
He's on Twitter all the time, so.
Oh, he's a Twitterer now.
Yeah, he's on there a lot.
Twitterer, are you? Too good for Slammin' Steve Sims.
Well, see, I think part of the charm of the show is the fact that Kurt doesn't watch anything.
Yeah, I know. And the great thing is, whenever we start talking about current wrestling, he always goes back to something that he just saw, months ago.
That's why I like having Ryan Doyle on here, is he gets it. He remembers L.A. He remembers all the old days. We can be crotchety old men.
We could be talking about Raw from last week, and then all of a sudden Kurt will be, talking about something from Southern California in 1970 or something.
Well, hey, wasn't this a perfect way? And by the way, when do I pretend that I've seen something that I didn't? I usually boast that I didn't see anything.
Yeah. I didn't say anything. I just said you never watched it.
What? Yeah, I'm trying to remember when I pretended that I saw something.
What they were referring to last time was actually it wasn't so much that you were trying to fake it. It was the fact that
it was the Raw, right?
It was the question about the Royal Rumble. Oh, it was about the John Morrison.
Yeah, the John Morrison spot.
and we asked you if you've seen it, and then you started talking about Alberto Del Rio.
That's because I thought you guys talked about the actual Royal Rumble, and who won it. I didn't know about some goddamn Spider-Man spot. If somebody told me, I would have looked for it, man. You think I'm going to pay $54 to watch?
Now, don't call me after the show and say, I sounded okay, didn't I? Don't do that this time, because you're sounding fine. I think the fact that you sound like the Groucho Man on the front porch is good. I have no problem with that. Hey, you kids, get out. Quit doing topes on my lawn.
Get away from my television set. In my day, goddammit.
Throws a shoe at him, then throw that shoe back.
Yeah, but this talk about old days and what I do see, I usually see things upon recommendation. I watched the Tosh.o segment upon Fredo's recommendation.
Wasn't that great? Wasn't that really good?
Great. Now, has everybody else seen it?
What
yes,
was it?
I have.
The Tosh.o segment about the guy who's wrestling is still real to him, goddammit.
Oh, no, I haven't seen it.
He doesn't seem that. He doesn't seem that weird though.
He's normal.
He's a normal guy.
It was taken out of context. It was a whole. It was like a speech about the wrestling deaths and stuff, and it ended with "It's still real to me, damn it."
Yeah. They edited it out.
And the part I wish that they actually kept in, even though it's Tosh.o, so they're not going to do it, but I remember Terry Funk saying something just very sweet to the guy, just saying something really appreciative, which I thought was awesome. But go out of your way to watch the Tosh.o. He does a great Ultimate Warrior impersonation. Not just impersonation, he dresses up as Ultimate Warrior.
It's a great show. It's a great show, really.
And what I love about Tosh is somewhere in the segment he mentions Arn Anderson. And that's not the first time he's mentioned Arn Anderson on his show. This guy is an Arn Anderson fan, which
nice. Awesome.
I know, he is too cool. The other thing that I watched was when Ryan posted on Facebook that during Alberto Del Rio's match with Kofi Kingston, that Booker T, doing commentating, mentioned Carlos Mata and Jose Lothario.
That's right.
I couldn't believe it. I had to rewind it just a few times just to see if I was getting this right.
Yeah, I was like, yes. And when I read that, I said, oh, my God, I forgot to DVR it. And, again, recommendation, Fredo said, dumbass, you can see it on YouTube. And so dumbass me went on YouTube and watched it. And just like Ryan said, same thing. I listened to it a few times. And Booker T rules as greatest color commentator in the world today, merely because of that. Now, if he brings up Pete Collins next week, he'll be eaten great. I will burn incense and do some incantations toward his soul. I tell you.
I was blown away. I mean, for him to kind of bring up of all people and to refer to I think Michael Cole actually referred to them as, well, those Mexican legends. Michael Cole probably has no idea who Carlos Mata is.
Someone needs to backhand that man quickly. I can't even listen to him anymore.
He is killing me.
Oh,
watching him and listening to him, it is so go away. Listening to him just makes me want to almost just turn the TV off. I mean, it's getting to that point. I don't know what, and it's. I think it's Vince whispering in his ear.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But either Vince is losing his mind and thinks this is okay, or something's going on there, because I've never heard where it's a good thing to sabotage the product like this.
Yes.
Oh, I know.
Amen.
I know. Sit there and tell Natalia she's fat and ugly. Go ahead, do it, Cole.
Yeah, I mean, it was horrible. Did you guys catch when he was talking to when he had Natty Neidhart?
Oh yeah, that's what I was referring to. He just eviscerated her, and it was a very, very, very bad thing to do. I mean, it got heat, but it took a place where it took her. Maybe I know that supposedly she's in the doghouse or whatever, but it basically took her and almost made it impossible for any fan watching to ever think that she's any good.
Yeah, it devalued her so much, what he did, and maybe that's what Vince wanted. I don't know.
I would love to see, when the camera's off, if you see Michael Cole saying, like, for the love of God, Vince, I think they're really going to kill me tonight. Can I say something intelligent, please? No, you got to say something completely imbecilic,
And it's amazing when Vince and Vince probably thinks he's cutting edge. He thinks he's so clever and doesn't realize how completely, utterly stupid it makes Cole look. It makes WWE look. It just is it any wonder that WWE is where it's at now?
Yeah, you got to remember, Vince is a guy, as much as he's done and as much as he's accomplished, he's still the guy who came up with a character called Meat just so he could use the tagline, "You can't beat meat." I mean,
well, yeah. Well,
come on, Porky's was high scholarly humor compared to that.
You also have to realize that he's like, we all know people, whether they're bosses or friends or relatives or whatever. The minute that you tell them you don't like something, or I don't think it's working or whatever, they will basically set the room on fire and go down in flames, swearing that it's not.
Yeah.
And that's what it basically, I mean, if you believe let's face it, none of us know him, but, if you believe all the things you read, the people who've worked with him or any of my God, I think every WWE writer now has a talk show and a blog now. But, I mean, and they're fascinating. They really are all fascinating, because you got this very, very interesting portrait of a man who is willing to basically take himself and take his company to the edge of the precipice sometimes, just to prove that he's not wrong.
Don't you think a lot of those writers have really bad ideas?
Horrible ideas.
I see Court Bauer's stuff, like whenever Brian Alvarez or Dave writes about it, and it's like some of the worst shit I've ever seen. It's like, that's probably why I didn't make it to TV. And I mean, it's bad enough for TV. I mean, come on.
I think that's a good point too. But also, you have to remember the parameters which they were set up that they can work within. So, and again, these are guys, and maybe they grew up as wrestling fans or came in from other places or whatever, but they were told basically to write a show that, to write it like it was a sitcom or an episode of Hill Street Blues or something, And I mean, they're given a Bible, and this is what they work off of, and they could put something together, and it could be going really, really well. And then all of a sudden, somebody walks in and says, "Well, so and so's in this shit house. We're not pushing them anymore."
Yeah.
And here's what's frustrating for me personally is, having said all of this, you know, you listen to The Rock's promo on Monday, and I thought, this is great stuff. I really enjoyed his promo. You know, I don't know if anybody else did, but I really personally enjoyed it. So it brings a lot of frustration because you hear this stupid, idiotic stuff, but then, you know, Rock comes out and cuts this killer promo.
Pretty much killed The Miz, too, that promo. I mean, this is like, you know, John Cena. I mean, that was fine. That was understandable. But like with the part with The Miz, I mean, it really just killed The Miz. He doesn't have the, you know, the clout that John Cena has, or the, you know, the backing that John Cena has. Whereas, you know,
Dan, did you see Rock's promo?
Oh yeah, I actually and my wife Mary Lou watched it, which is one of the few times. Again, it takes a lot to make her sit down and watch 20 minutes of wrestling in a row that way, unless she knows somebody. And plus, all, you know, she likes him anyway. But she was laughing, thought it was hysterical. Yeah. And I said to a couple of people afterwards, I said, you know, you could take that 20-25 minutes or whatever, and whether you're a wrestler or a comedian or an actor or whatever, watch how a man takes 20,000 people and wraps them around his finger.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't say anything. There's not a comma, not a period, not a breath, not anything. You know, I always get a big kick when he does, you know, what The Rock is cooking, is that he always stops, and it could be 10 seconds, it could be a half hour before he says the rest of that. He doesn't do it until he feels it, and that's always the important thing of any kind of artistic endeavor.
Well, and it sounds like very few people even have the opportunity to do that because they're spoon-fed entire scripts.
Yeah.
You know, where he was still, when he was around, I think you were still working off your own instinct. You know, I'm sure it was a lot more scripted.
And he also got enough clout as it went on that they just left him go and let him do it.
Yeah.
Because as long as you know, he could hit what he could do, what he was. I thought was really funny was, I can't begin to tell you how many of my friends who don't usually watch wrestling said to me, "Hey, The Rock was on TV Monday night." I said, "Oh, are you watching wrestling again?" "Oh, no, I just was flipping around the dial and I saw it. I didn't. I wasn't watching it."
They don't want to admit to watching wrestling yet.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, that was just again, he eviscerated Michael Cole in like 5 lines.
Yeah.
And he basically, and actually, he probably took more steam out of Cena than anybody's done over the years.
I would agree. Yeah.
You know, and so.
Yeah, what I thought about that though was it wasn't just that he made fun of Cena and did it so well.
Yeah.
It's that he also did the whole kind of. When I was around, it was me, it was Steve Austin, and now you have these guys. It wasn't everybody sucks but me. It was, hey, remember how much better it was when me and Austin and everyone else were around.
Well, you know, I agree with that. That's fascinating because I've noticed that the last year or so, whenever the quote-unquote legends or the old-timers come on, one of the things they always stress, and they always get it over on TV, is that, yeah, you guys are great, but in my day, there was this and there was that.
And in his case, it's almost like he was saying that whole speech could have summed up with him saying just one word: amateurs.
Yeah, well, and also as they were saying, as a lot of people have brought up, The Rock has always been great, but at the time that he was cutting most of his promos, you know, you had Mick Foley and Steve Austin doing some of the best work that they've ever done either, and he was always considered to be one of the best, but he wasn't like the number one promo guy. And again, he comes out and he does this, and you know, nothing but him and the microphone talking to the people, and he basically blows away everyone.
Yeah.
With ease.
With ease.
You know what they should have done? They should have cut to like the writers throwing away all their papers.
Shredded the script.
Throwing away the
I like that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, like, oh crap, we're done.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing is, the way I was thinking is, it was so good, it may have been too good.
Yeah, I know.
Because I don't know if you're going to be able to beat it.
Yeah,
how do you follow that up?
Now next week, when is the Undertaker coming back? Like the 21st?
Yeah, so this Monday.
Yeah, that's not going to be that big of a deal now, too. So.
Nah, not at all. I mean, after
unless
that,
they do something, they would have to do something with it. But yeah, but after Rock, no.
Like if it would have been like Undertaker versus Sting, that would have been interesting. Just because
that would have been very interesting.
In Atlanta, I mean, that would have been huge.
I think it would have been really interesting if it had been 15 years ago. I don't know about now.
Well, in Atlanta, I mean, that would have been huge because Sting really was the biggest name in WCW.
Yeah, I still think, again, nostalgia, like we saw with Booker and with Diesel and the Royal Rumble, nostalgia does work one time.
Yeah.
And if they could have set that up a certain way where it was just the two of them in the ring at WrestleMania, it may have worked. It didn't have to be a great match. It's kind of like the old Robert Klein, the comedian's line about teenage sex. You don't have to be good, you just have to be there. And that's kind of what it would be like, to have them.
It's in a place where it would have worked perfectly because it's in Atlanta. I mean, where else it wouldn't work anywhere else because Sting wasn't that big of a star outside of that area.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
Well, one thing that Ryan and I wanted to touch on is when we talked about Booker T talking about Carlos Mata and Jose Lothario, Ryan and I were talking about how the Mata brothers were two cats that we were really into back in the old SoCal days, and we talked about bringing up just various old SoCal names. And Ryan, probably the first few times you went to the Olympic when you were probably 4 or 5 years old, you probably ran across one of the Matas.
Yeah, when I started going, Raul Mata had pretty much moved on. I think I caught maybe a couple of matches of his, but Raul Mata is the older brother. Carlos Mata was really, coming into his own at the time, and he was sort of the, he'd win, occasional matches on TV, and he was kind of the person. If a heel came in, you had to, and you were looking to have a match with Chavo for the America's title. You sort of had to go through Carlos Mata, or one of the younger Guerrero brothers. But Carlos Mata was always kind of it was sort of like when a wrestler would go to the old WWF and want to wrestle Backlund for the title, but you had to go through Chief Jay Strongbow first.
Yes.
And Carlos Mata kind of filled that. And the Matas, they did well. I mean, even together, they had the America's Tag Team title, I think, a couple of times, and they both held the tag team titles with other wrestlers, and they were very good. I thought Carlos Mata was always when Carlos Mata was in the ring and ready for a match, you knew you were going to watch a good match.
This is true, and the same with Raul Mata. When I started watching in '72, he was the first wrestler that I really got into. I mean, it was the first time I saw a wrestler where I sat there saying, having no concept of what the working was, I just said, wait a minute, this guy has something above the other guys.
Right.
Not only was he a really dynamic and expressive babyface, but he was a guy who had these really just high-voltage drop kicks. He did kip-ups. You just saw nobody else do him the way he did him. And he did the Hurricanrana just beautifully.
Yeah.
And the two guys I think of in the first year I watched wrestling that just blew my mind were him and the first time they ever brought Jack Briscoe onto LA TV. And those are two guys I'm saying, wait a minute, these guys stand out amongst all the others. Raul Mata was a really, really solid worker, a really solid babyface. And similar to Carlos, he was used somewhere kind of in the mid-card. And he was great for sympathy heat. I mean, sometimes they would have the heels just beat him down unmercifully, and nobody could sell like he was getting killed like Raul Mata. I mean, he would have people pissed off when somebody like Ernie Ladd was jabbing him in the windpipe and having him spit up blood. And nobody sold a rake to the eyes like Raul Mata. Somebody would rake his eyes, and he would just, cover his face like somebody ripped his face off and just sell it like he was in dire pain and arch his back.
Yeah. And you mentioned a couple of Slam and Stand podcasts before that he was involved in the first angle involving a guitar, which I had forgotten about.
I remember this so well. This was when Ripper Collins was a heel commentator alongside Dick Lane. And one night, Raul Mata just comes out with his guitar, and along with Jimmy Lennon, they sing some old Mexican folk song. Both of them had great singing voices, and of course, Ripper Collins gets up and covers his ears and walks away, and the fans are booing him. They continue the song, and then out of nowhere, Collins attacks Mata and just beats him into oblivion with his guitar. And they set it up for an angle for a match a few weeks later. And at that time, Ripper Collins' tag team partner was Gordon Nelson, who eventually went on to be the LA version of Mr. Wrestling. But a few weeks later on TV, Mata's wrestling Gordon Nelson, and Ripper Collins is in his usual spot, as the heel commentator. But he decides to help out Gordon Nelson and comes up to ringside with his cane. And Mata takes the cane from him and, just nails him in the neck with it. And it was just awesome. Collins is laying there with his eyes half open like he's died and has blood dripping out of his mouth.
Wow.
And Dick Lane sold it even better. Like, when they came back from the commercial break, Dick Lane says, I know that Ripper Collins and I don't see eye to eye, but I don't like seeing somebody hurt like that. And I think he asked for what he was getting, but I really hope he's okay. And I'm like 11 years old going, fuck. Mr. Lane looks serious here. He's not saying whoa nilly.
Exactly. Now, I've got a trivia question that I just thought of for all you gentlemen listening here. Now, it involves Carlos Mata. Now, can any of you name the two big feuding factions? The original, way before there was an NWO or an NWO Wolfpack or Nexus or the Core or whatever they call it. There were two warring factions in the late 70s.
I know at least one of these.
Was one of them, and there was another faction. Can any of you?
Wait, who was the first one?
Are we talking about the company?
There you go. The R&R company.
Rivera and
Rivera and Ramos.
Ramos, yeah, that's Rivera. Right. Every heel in Southern California belonged to that.
Even Pistol Pete.
Yeah,
everybody was in there. They all had R&R T-shirts.
That's right. And do you remember the faction that they were warring against? With the name of that faction?
You know what?
I don't remember that. No,
I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember.
Fredo, any guess?
I don't know that. I don't go that.
Bixie Demon, any guess at all?
This is in L.A.?
In L.A.
I mean, is Piper around there?
Piper at the time was in Oregon.
Okay, so I have no idea.
They were called. It was started by three guys: Al Madril, Mondo Guerrero, and Carlos Mata. And they were called the Big M.
I was going to say, wait a minute, there's M's there.
The Big M. And it was the three of them kind of against these 15, heels. And they were kind of fighting the losing battle, and they were getting their tails kicked every week until they decided to come out with the secret member of the Big M who would straighten things out himself, and of course that could only be
Bill Guerrero.
Bill Miller. The monster?
No. Different guesses. Who was it?
I wish.
Brilliant.
Andre the Giant?
It was the person who didn't want to pose for a picture with Lucky Pierre.
Mil Mascaras.
Mil Mascaras.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, that's awesome.
But the monster would have been perfect.
Oh, the monster would have been the best. That would have, oh, my God.
And you could have brought him out in a cape and a sombrero. That is perfect. Kurt and I have talked, and we are in the process. We're trying to track down. We want the monster, the actual wrestler who played the monster, to be on this show.
On
yes,
this
we
show
do.
or MPW?
We may scare him half to death, but we wanted to be on the show.
Yeah, totally.
Well, how many Tony Hernandezes are there in Southern California?
He's not in Southern California anymore. He's in Arizona, and Mr. Bill Anderson knows him very well.
Oh, he actually. Oh, okay.
And he still has his monster.
He still has the outfit.
You see that? All we need is somebody to have a flashing flashlight and bring him to the ring. Oh, that would be perfect.
That would be bitchin'. We could get him on the show, and whenever we ask him a question, he just answers by going, Ernesto good. Ernesto friend.
Well, it's funny. Going back to the company, that was like one of the last gasps.
And that was actually a pretty good.
It was a great little gimmick. Yeah, it was Rivera Ramos. Was it Tank Patton at one time in that?
No, it was Colosso Colasetti.
Colosso Colasetti.
And I believe the Twin Devils were in there.
Mm-hmm.
And Bull Ramos, Bad News Coage.
Coage, yeah.
And Rivera, of course, and I think who else was in there, but
Jimmy Cyclone.
No, I was part of the M Company. I was Mimi Myclone during those days.
Because wasn't that used the term Rivera face the last time? The company, wasn't it, or was it something?
No, Rivera's last face turn. I remember this
because it was a letter from his mother.
It was a letter from his mother.
In 1981.
Yeah, that was his face turn because I remember he came out to a Jeff Walton interview and he had been a heel for quite a while and he had this very remorseful look and I remember Jeff sort of softening his voice. Well, Victor, what is wrong with you? And then he I got my mother got me this she's very disappointed in me,
Oh my God! I wish I had seen that.
Oh, and then, it was hysterical. Yeah,
it was brilliant. And then and then Jeff actually posts the letter from his mother in the wrestling program.
Exactly.
The wrestling programs where they would quote Toru Tanaka as saying, "Me no throw salt."
That was Victor Rivera's turn to babyface turn, and then John Tolis, of course, is like, yeah, see, you know what? I don't care about his mother, and attacks him. And
Lord, that's great.
If he could have just given Rivera's mother the corkscrew, it would have been perfect.
Victor, help me, Victor. Another great angle in that respect. I don't know if you guys remember this when Alex K.O. Perez Jimmy Lennon would introduce him as, Alex Perez, and he'd grab the microphone and says, "Listen, Bones, my name's not Perez. My name's Perez." And, I'm not a Mexican, damn it. And this goes on for like months where he threatens, Jimmy Lennon. In fact, Jimmy Lennon finally says, "Okay, if you want me to just make a fool of you, I'll announce you as Alex Perez." And this goes on, and then he's teaming with Texas Red one night, and he turns face, and it was the most hysterical thing because Chavo's on the other team, and I can't remember what brings up the altercation, but he ends up beating the hell out of Red Bastien, and the main event for that Friday night was supposed to be Chavo versus Red, and Chavo starts to walk away from the ring, and Alex Perez says, Chavo, let me wrestle him instead Friday. I'm not done with him. I'm very angry. And Chavo shakes his head no. And then suddenly Perez goes, Chavo, mi hermano, por favor. And Chavo turns around like, what? and he says, and I swear to God, I can't remember if it was Gene LaBelle or Jeff Walton, but they says, Fans, he has reclaimed his heritage.
and then Victor Rivera came in with a letter from his mother saying, "I am very ashamed of Alex K.O. Perez."
Oh man,
I loved
that.
K.O.
That was great
Perez.
shit.
I loved Alex Perez. He looked like a little Taz.
I heard he was a really tough guy.
And he used to have, well, I know that's redundant, but he looked like Taz, and I think he used to, if I remember correctly, he taped his fist. That's where the KO came from. And unfortunately, there was always a little bit of confusion with the other Alex Perez from like 10 years later.
Two very different guys.
Yeah. Two very different guys, but he was a good little. He was another one of those good little veteran hands from back at that time, and he was just a guy that could go anywhere and fit in any position they wanted him to.
And apparently he was a hell of a shooter, too. Apparently he was.
I'm sure he was. He had that look. There were certain guys I always used to remember that when you would go to the arena, there were guys that people would give a wide berth to, and he was always one of those guys.
Yes. Another comical KO Perez moment. It's ironic that he could have beaten the hell out of everybody, but yet the moments I remember are the comical ones where he had a match with a poster of Andre the Giant.
Oh, I remember that.
Where they actually made a ring introduction, where they introduced the poster of Andre the Giant and Alex Perez, and I think Piper was with him, and he knocked out the poster of Andre the Giant, and they actually announced the match like the winner in 1 minute and 30 seconds. And I remember Bill Hill, who used to put out a newsletter back in New York, when I first talked to him, he says, yeah, that's when they used to air LA Wrestling. I saw him knock out the poster. Last time I ever watched LA Wrestling.
Oh, God.
And, of course, LA recycled that idea when they had Roddy Piper beat up and pin the poster of Bob Backlund.
That's right, yes.
So they recycled that a couple of times.
Are you sure it wasn't actually Bob Backlund? Because I don't know there's much of a difference between the poster of Bob Backlund and Bob Backlund.
Same personality.
Same personality. That's
Well, LaBelle really knew he was going to sell the promotion to Vince when he couldn't come up with any more ideas, so he had a poster of Andre the Giant fight a poster of Bob Backlund. None could carry the other, so, he said, time to sell.
Oh, God.
You see, Fredo, isn't this a lot better than talking about Kofi Kingston and Jack Swagger?
Kofi Kingston.
And by the way, I have to thank you guys, too, because you know what? Ryan, you were talking about getting frustrated and watching through all the crap, but then the payoff comes when The Rock is there. But I want to thank you guys because I was able to just let it happen and wait for you guys to say how awesome it was. So I could just not watch all the crap, and I could just watch the good stuff.
Oh, yeah. Actually, one of my favorite things that happened on the Monday Night Raw show, and no one's caught this, and I was really surprised when I rolled it back 2 or 3 times, is that during that women's Lumberjill match or whatever it was.
Nobody watches that, Dan. That's why.
I know, but I just watch it in slow motion. That's just no. There was a spot where all the girls were outside, and Natty Neidhart did a dive, and they all took a bump, and the microphone.
That's where she caught Maurice right in the face, I think.
Yeah, caught Maurice right in the face, and the microphone was a little too close to the girls, and Alicia Fox rolls over, and she keeps going, "Are you okay? Are you okay, girl?" Like that to Maurice. "Are you okay, girl?" Like that.
That's
and Melina leans over and goes, "Are you okay, bitch?" And if you watch it, that's why Michael Cole and Josh started laughing.
Yeah, they were laughing uncontrollably.
They started laughing because they heard them do that, and there was no way of getting around that or whatever. But you have to really, it's like the Zapruder film. You got to slow it down and really listen to it closely. But it is, I'm sure it'll wind up in Botchmania or something like that. It was my favorite girls speaking to each other moment. My other favorite one recently was there was another. Again, it's those Lumberjill matches where the poor girls have no idea what they're doing, and I think it was. Jillian came up on Alicia Fox and like threw Alicia Fox threw a punch at her, and Jillian didn't see it and didn't sell it. And the camera's right there. As they turn to walk away, you see Jillian turn it to Alicia Fox and go, "Sorry." I love when those little things happen.
Oh, those are cute. Those are adorable.
Yeah. It's almost as fun as, like I said, I love those Botchmania things because I love, they'll see, there was a great Khali spot from a Royal Rumble a couple of years ago where actually you see Shawn Michaels point to Khali where to go.
Oh, and one fact, I think Ryan and I have often joked about what a lame worker El Negro was back in the LA territory days.
God.
And the El Negro moment I'll never forget was in a match when, in 1979, Lars Anderson was briefly under a hood as the Hangman. And he goes to lock up with El Negro, and he does the thing where, you know, instead of just locking up, he kind of, you know, puts his hand up in the air so El Negro could, like, just grab a top wrist lock and he can throw him. Well, he's holding his hand up there in a I'm about to lock up position, and El Negro just looks at him. And finally, after, you know, about 10, 12 seconds, with his right hand, he points to his left arm. Like, grab my arm, damn it!
Well, I've told this story before. My favorite El Negro story was, and El Negro, just for people who weren't around, was the brother of the infamous Oregon lumberjack, and the
brother of Ricky Romero too.
Ricky Romero too, and basically when he fell out of the tree, Ricky hit all the talent branches, and poor El Negro did it. And I saw him in San Bernardino with Les Thornton, and they were doing some sort of spot, and they were coming off the ropes. And now Les Thornton, for anybody who doesn't know, was really a tough. His nickname was the Mean Machine. He was a tough little English shooter, and he was the guy actually that was wrestling with Dory Funk Sr. when Dory Funk Sr. Had the heart attack and died.
Oh wow!
I did not know that.
They were like, you know, shooting around, screwing around at the ranch there, and he had a heart attack.
Oh.
But he came off the ropes. El Negro did, and there was a miscommunication, and they kind of, instead of like doing the shoulder block spot, they just kind of bumped each other. And there's a pause for a moment, and El Negro does a back fall. And Thornton looks down at him and proceeds to beat the living hell out of him for the next 2 minutes.
And that's when you learned what shooting was.
In that vein of "Don't make me look bad."
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you know what that reminds me of, actually, and it also involves Les Thornton, is, you know, the story from Mick Foley's book about how, you know, the match where he teams with Les Thornton against the British Bulldogs doing jobs on WWF TV, about how that was his second match, I think.
That's right, yeah.
You know, through, you know, Dominic DeNucci vouching for him or whatever. And, you know, his first mistake before the match is telling Dynamite that he wants to do a flying elbow if he can.
Yes,
then he's on the apron, and he's seeing Davey and Les Thornton do a bunch of chain wrestling, and he realizes, oh my God, I am way in over my head.
Yeah.
And then Dynamite Kid broke his jaw.
I actually remember when that match aired, when it very first aired, because I just remember that bump off the top turnbuckle as the finish, and back then that was something you did not see every day.
Yeah.
And I just said, oh, that poor kid.
Do you think Mick Foley was going to be a big star back then, Kurt?
No, I just said, well.
Mick Foley didn't think Mick Foley was going to be a big star.
Yeah, I don't think anybody did. But, you know, not a soul. I just thought, well, here's another AJ Petruzzi or, you know, Frankie
the first time I saw him was like when he was starting out in Texas. And I thought, man, this guy's really weird, but I don't think he's going to make it like into a, you know, big old star. Figured he'd be like Devastation Incorporated, you know, type of.
Even when he went to WWF initially as Mankind, I did not think he was going to be the legend he became. And I mean, above all, I thank Mick Foley.
I thought he was great, though.
No, he was great, but I just didn't think it would really go that far. But what I thank him above all is he really put wrestling literature on the map. That's the book that got people taking it seriously. And it's still
I started the Jericho book this week, and it's pretty good. I'm really enjoying it.
I'm looking forward to reading that.
It's very good.
Yeah, it really is. It's very good.
And stuff, right?
And you know, when you talk about the Mick Foley thing coming in, I mean, that's always has been the big question, and it still remains to this day. Is you've had guys come in who have slow starts and like Austin did, or a false start, and then they wind up taking it and being able to make it work. You have guys that come in, and the minute they hit the ground, they were stars. And that makes you wonder still to this day, again, as we talked about before, and we've joked about it, but the big question to me during the next 12 months is Mistico. Mm-hmm. Will it work? Will it not work?
It won't, but I'm curious to see what happens. I mean, I really didn't think Dos Caras Jr. would go anywhere.
They'll tell him to take his mask off and be Paco Ramirez or something like that.
No, they'll take his mask off and be El Psicodelico.
Yeah, I mean, because I was wondering also, because we talked that I watched, I think, Kurt, you posted it,
Kurt posted a wrestling match on his Facebook page?
Well, we had women in it, that's why. Raquel Diaz, who is...
I posted that.
Oh, you posted that? I'm sorry. I should have known better, Fredo.
In fact, we
I'm
talked
sorry.
about it early in the show. In fact, I remember I didn't quite... I thought that she's extremely, extremely green, but she seems to have a little more base and bounce that the other girls in the match didn't have. Her bumps are greener than hell. I mean, really green. But I could picture her doing fine.
Yeah, I just, maybe it's just, again, it's the old school thing, and we've talked about it here before. It used to be in the old days that you had guys masquerading as relatives of other wrestlers because it gave them a little cachet when they came in. And now you have guys, Michael McGillicuddy shouldn't be Michael McGillicuddy. He should be Joe Hennig.
Well, that's the thing, though. They say that he's Mr. Perfect's son and Larry the Axe Hennig's grandson.
Yeah.
Well, you know the reason for that, though. It was in the Observer that they don't want, because of Lashley and Lesnar and Stacey Keibler, they don't want anyone to be able to use their real name.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's just Vince being dumb, because, I mean, don't you think it's like if these guys can get out of wrestling and become something other than wrestlers after a couple of years in the business, I mean, he should be happy about that. I mean, because I keep
thinking bragging about The Rock big time.
Yeah, I mean, because what's the is it better for them to have another career or continue to be in wrestling, showing up and like practically dying a couple of years later just from their drug use or something?
It's like he's unhappy with either extreme.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather they go and become movie stars or something. Who cares?
Definitely. Well, before we go, I just want to... Here's an interesting piece of Raul Mata trivia that I did not know before, that I looked up. 1969, he got his first push as Mexican national light heavyweight champion. Same title that everybody from Tarzan Lopez to Blackie Guzman to Cavernario Galindo to Mil Mascaras. But the one who held it the longest was Raul Mata. From April 11th, 1969, when he beat Dr. Wagner in a tournament, and dropped it to Enrique Vera in June of 1972.
And Enrique Vera just retired this year.
That's right.
Wow.
Tells you how long he's been around.
And for some other interesting trivia, I want all you guys who are near a computer to go to Facebook and look at Vandal Drummond's latest posting.
We're not doing homework if you're not doing homework. I'm sorry.
I'm doing homework now. I'm looking. I'm trying to find what I just posted because I'm not sure myself.
You still have to do
1961. Wow.
So the Bixie Demon got there the fastest. You rock. And Dan Farron, if you're wondering where I got the photo I just posted,
where did you get that?
I found it deep in the depths of Eric Caden's many boxes of Olympic Auditorium material.
Well, we know that's a bottomless pit. That thing is.
It is, and I just found it by sheer. I wasn't even looking for it.
I'm not at the computer. Is it a picture of like Josephine or what is it? A picture
even better, it's Judo Gene LaBelle in his gi in the ring in 1961.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a copy of the picture. It's a great picture.
There we go. I was going to ask for one before we finished up.
Yeah, that's right. And for all the other, all the people out there, if you go to YouTube, there is footage of Judo Gene, and I think it was Bix who pointed it out to me. There is Judo Gene LaBelle interviewing Tank Patton at the end. He does his famous, wow! It's beautiful.
Gene LaBelle should give you money. You've kept this man
I agree.
alive in the alive out there, and he should have T-shirts that say that. He really should.
That would be great. I think the wow is more memorable than the whole LaBelle lock thing. To be honest, I mean, wow! It's awesome.
How did Daniel Bryan find out about that move?
He probably read the book.
The name? Oh, there's a book about it.
Well, I mean, Gene put out a book of like wrestling finishing holds many years ago.
Yes, with Mondo Guerrero as his tackling dummy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you guys. This has been a total awesome gathering of the minds, so to speak, or in my case, the vapid mind. And I want to thank you guys for watching so much wrestling so I don't have to.
Now Kurt's going to stop. Now Kurt's going to figure he doesn't have to watch it at all now.
Kurt's going to watch even less now.
Yeah,
he's going to watch even less now.
Well, he's not even watching AAA now, so it's kind of like now we're down to like nothing.
I DVR it every week and I erase it because I keep running out of room.
Yeah.
I mean, there's great old, silent movies to be had on my DVR. I mean, the Keystone Cops, they make more sense than half of the stuff on TV now.
Kayfabe Cops.
Kayfabe Cops, they will be coming. Yeah, we got to get this brainstorm going. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us for another edition of Slam and Stand. This was episode number 49, so next episode is number 50, coming in 2 weeks. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Fredo. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Bixie Demon. And especially Fredo for always being the manpower behind this. And remember, if you're ever walking down the street on a starry evening in Southern California and you see a bright light streaking across the sky, it is not a shooting star. What is it, ladies and gentlemen?
A heavenly handful of everybody.
Montel powder. The powder.
See you in 2 weeks.
Wow! Wow! Wow!